Discover 3 sinister and spine-chilling, true winter horrors that haunt the unexplained. The snow fell thick and heavy, blanketing the quiet suburban streets in a world that felt dead, every flake a whisper of the terror lurking beneath the surface. Sarah rushed home, her heart pounding with exhaustion after a grueling shift at the diner. Each breath hung in the air, visible and chilling. As she stepped inside her small home, an icy dread stopped her in her tracks. "Mommy! There was a man in the snow!" Emily's wide eyes glistened with fear, her tiny hands trembling as she pointed toward the window. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She briefly thought of the rumors swirling through the diner, the mothers who spoke of children vanishing, swallowed by the winter's grip. A chill curled up her spine as she tried to fade away, the panic rising within her. "Honey, it's just your imagination," she said, forcing a smile that felt wrong on her face. But deep down her heart raced, for she couldn't shake the haunting whispers. Kids were disappearing and no one dared to ask why. In the quiet shadows of their living room, something felt wrong, as if the snow itself was hiding something sinister, something alive. As night closed in, Sarah tried to shake off her unease. She tucked Emily in, humming soft lullabies, but the stories echoed through her mind, like the howling winds outside. A celebrator of community spirit, the local volunteer firefighter, was loved by all. Just last week, he brought cookies during the holiday bake-off. But what did she really know about him? A knot formed in her stomach as she paced the living room, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The snowstorm raged on outside, each gust a reminder of the unknown lurking in the dark. Then the shadows seemed to dance and twist beyond the glass, flickering movements that sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. Before she could catch her breath, she found herself trembling at the back door, staring into the endless white that seemed to swallow her neighborhood whole. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into nights, each one steeped in the icy grip of fear, when a half-buried toy emerged from the crushed snow in their backyard. Her heart sank into despair. It belonged to a child who had gone missing months ago, a silent scream that echoed through the empty streets. There had to be a connection. She couldn't ignore it. Every instinct told her to act, but terror wrapped its icy fingers around her mind. Was she losing her grip? Determined, she prepared for a confrontation with the enigmatic firefighter on the evening of a community event. As she sat in the cold bleachers, shadows felt like thick fingers curling around her throat. Occasional laughter and cheer echoed hollowly, but all she could see was darkness lurking at the corners. In that moment, a bone-chilling realization sank in. Whoever she confronted tonight could alter everything. A breath caught in her throat when she spotted him, his figure warm and familiar, yet something menacing glinted in his eyes. The snow fell heavier, muffling all hope. As she gathered her courage, the truth loomed like a storm on the horizon, and with it came the chilling question. Could she trust him? Or did the true horror lie hidden just out of sight? The tension knotted in Sarah's chest, like barbed wire, digging deeper with every heartbeat. The laughter from the community event buzzed around her, filling the air with a misleading sense of safety, but all she could sense was the impending doom that hung over her, like an executioner's blade. "Hey, you okay?" It was Anna, her co-worker from the diner, concern etched on her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." It took every ounce of Sarah's strength to nod. "Just tired." Scanning the crowd, she could still see him, Dan, the firefighter, moving among the festival-goers, laughter spilling from his lips. but the way the shadows twisted, wrapping around him like tendrils of smoke, kept her rooted in fear. When Emily had mentioned the man in the snow, she had thought it was just a figment of a child's imagination. Now, every rumor she had dismissed flashed in her mind, whispers of children's giggles fading into silence, parents' frantic searches that ended in heartbreak. There was something in Dan's smile that sent icy tremors racing down her spine. She stood slowly, hands clammy, knees weak. The crowd swirled around her, voices merging into a hum of noise, drowning her thoughts beneath a wave of anxiety. Could she really confront him? What if he was innocent? Or worse, what if he wasn't? One misstep could cost her everything, especially Emily. "Sarah, you're not going to leave, are you?" Anna asked, clutching her arm. "It's just a winter festival." "Yeah," Sarah muttered, a nervous glance at the man, a figure without a face now, just a silhouette in the snow. A shred of doubt twisted with her fears. What if nothing was true? What if these were just stories fed by paranoia and panic? But as she watched the way he engaged with the children, the inner battle raged ferociously. Then she saw it. In a small clearing, something caught the glimmer of the streetlights, half buried in the snow. It looked like a shoe, one that was decidedly too small. Her heart raced, thudding against her ribcage as if trying to break free. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Anna's voice was distant, and Sarah realized her feet had already begun moving, driven by an instinct far stronger than reason. She pushed through the dispersing crowd toward the ominous sight. "What are you doing?" Anna shouted after her, but Sarah barely heard. Each step felt heavy, as if the snow itself aimed to drag her down. The shoe became clearer, a dark red, just like the whispers had described. It was there, at her feet, a grotesque remnant of hope gone cold. With trembling hands, Sarah bent down, fingers brushing against the icy fabric. This was real, more real than the chill in the air, or Dan's disarming smile. Suddenly her breath hitched, and her heart lurched. "Why did you come here?" a low voice asked, sending a jolt through her. She pivoted to face Dan, his shadow looming taller, darker than before. Those once warm eyes glinted with something unfathomable. I just... He stepped closer, and the overwhelming scent of pine and blood slipped into her nostrils. "It's not safe out here, for little girls." The terror shot through her, a cold spike of fear injected directly into her veins. She froze, staring into the depths of his eyes. What had she stumbled into? The ground felt unsteady beneath her. Who was he really? Before she could respond, Dan leaned in closer, his voice a chilling whisper. "You shouldn't have looked too closely." As a shiver coursed through her, Sarah turned on her heel, fear propelling her forward. But the shadows shifted, swirling like a tempest, and she was met with an unsettling realization. Somewhere among the white drifts lay truths she wasn't ready to face, secrets that could freeze her heart forever. Behind her, Dan's laughter echoed, a laugh that seemed to dance with the dying winter winds. The ominous question curled in her mind, gnawing at her. How far would she go to protect her child, especially when oblivion stood right on her doorstep? As she sprinted into the chaos, she understood that not all monsters lived in the shadows. And then she heard it, a child's voice, echoing from somewhere deep in the snow. "Mommy, help!" Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a jackhammer against her ribcage as she pushed through clusters of festival-goers. The world around her morphed into a blurry chaos of colors and festive lights, but all she could fixate on was that haunting call. "Mommy, help! Emily!" The name tore from her lips, desperate and raw. Panic clawed at her throat. Instinct took over as she maneuvered past families and laughter, oblivious to the warmth and joy that once felt so comforting. "Sarah, wait!" Anna's voice faded behind her, swallowed by the thrumming pulse of fear. Each step felt heavy, as if the snow were trying to pull her down. She searched frantically, calling Emily's name, but the festival atmosphere was like a cruel veil shrouding the truth. How far could a child wander? What if she was caught in the grasp of something darker? Then just ahead, the crowd thinned. Sarah squeezed through to a bank of snow, the moonlight illuminating the scene. It felt eerily quiet here, as though the laughter from the festival had been deliberately muted. Chills danced on her skin. Something shifted in the depths of the snow, a shadow beneath the surface. She felt drawn to it, a magnetic pull overriding her instincts. Was it her daughter? "Emily!" she shouted again, her voice trembling. She dropped to her knees, hands digging into the cold white expanse. The snow surrounded her like a tomb, and she felt the weight of every passing moment. As her fingers clawed frantically, breaking the surface, she uncovered a different shoe, this one bright pink, stained and muddy. The dread settled like a stone in her stomach. She was sure now, this was Emily's. A cold breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." Her breaths came quick and sharp, shallow against the gripping terror. She spun around, scanning for Dan, for any sign of danger. The world narrowed to that singular moment, her heart a drumbeat in the haunting silence. "Where are you, Emily?" she choked out. Shadows loomed close, stretching far beyond the reach of lantern lights. The laughter had vanished, leaving an unsettling stillness. And then she saw it, a figure half hidden in the darkness. "Mommy?" The voice was small, pained, barely above a whisper. "Emily!" Sarah surged toward the sound, but as she neared, the figure flickered like a candle in the wind. The child moved, but not as she should. Faded edges blurred around her, shadows swallowing her whole. "Mommy, please help!" The plea grew faint, swallowed by the night. A scream clawed at Sarah's throat. "Don't you dare go!" she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. But the silhouette faded, the space left hauntingly empty. The shadows gathered around her, thick and suffocating. She stumbled back, heart racing, adrenaline surging through her veins. "Get away from her!" she screamed into the darkness. A familiar laughter echoed from behind, sending shivers down her spine. It was Dan. "You shouldn't follow what you can't understand." She turned, just in time to see him stepping further into the darkness, his form blending with the shadows. "Stay away from my daughter!" Sarah screamed, but he merely chuckled, the sound chilling her to the bone. With desperation, little remaining, she clawed at the ground, trying to unearth Emily, fighting against a tide of fear and despair. Moments later, the laughter ceased, dropping into an eerie silence that clawed at her sanity. "Where are you? Please come back," she begged, the weight of the night heavy upon her. In that moment, trapped between realization and panic, Sarah felt a shift. The ground trembled, and she sensed something lurking beneath, something that would demand a price. A figure emerged, not her daughter, but a twisted echo of fear. "You found me, Mommy." The breath caught in her throat as she faced an unrecognizable truth. What had she stumbled into? What secrets lay buried here? As the snow settled around her, she whispered, "What have you done to her?" But the voice, mocking and layered with the resonance of countless unanswered questions, replied, "You should never have looked too closely." In that moment, shadows thickened, ready to consume her, and the question burned in her mind. Would uncovering the truth cost her the only thing she loved? Sarah's heart felt like a drum pounding against her chest. The darkness closed in, wrapping around her like cold fingers. She fought for clarity, for sanity, but the chilling words echoed in her mind, drowning out reason. "You shouldn't have looked too closely." The snow around her whispered, shifting with grey shadows that flickered and darted. She pulled her hands free from the clinging cold, scrambling to stand. The figure, the one who had echoed her daughter's voice, was gone, leaving behind a tension so thick that she could nearly taste it. "Emily," she called again, but her voice sounded weak, almost lost in the vast emptiness shaping the night. Then a distant sound pierced through the quiet, a giggle, light and playful but twisted. It carried a familiar tone, but something about it sent ice through her veins. It floated from deeper within the dark woods. Was it her daughter, or an imitation? "Emily, I'm coming." With each step away from the festival lights, dread gnawed at her. The joyous atmosphere felt so far away, as if it belonged to another world. She pressed on, past the line of trees that had become grotesque figures in the night. Branches scraped against her arms, pricking her skin and drawing thin lines of blood, but she hardly noticed. All that mattered was the voice, getting closer, like a haunting melody. "Mommy, where are you?" As she ventured deeper, the air thickened, a suffocating blanket making every breath a labor. The path was barely visible, a winding trail of crushed snow, and she stumbled through the underbrush, heart racing ahead of her. The woods felt alive, an entity all its own. Shadows danced among the trees, and every rustle sent her heart into a new frenzied beat. Were they watching her? Listening? Mommy. The laughter rang out again, sharper now, cutting through her like a sharp knife. It was no longer the innocent sound she yearned for. She burst through the thick brush into a clearing, her breath catching in her throat at the sight that greeted her. A circle of frost-bitten flowers bloomed defiantly in the cold, their petals speckled with glimmering frost, contrasting with the stark white of the snow surrounding them. In the center, a crude snowman loomed, its eyes hollowed out stones, the mouth twisted into a crooked grin. It felt wrong, sinister even, but it was what stood beside it that froze her in place. Two figures, two children, stood staring blankly at her. One was small, with tangled hair and an expression that mirrored Emily's. The other was taller, resembling a young girl, but her eyes were dark and ancient. "Welcome, Mummy," the larger girl said, her voice thick with mockery. "We've been waiting for you." Fear coursed through Sarah with a ferocity that threatened to paralyze her. "What do you want?" The children shared a conspiratorial glance, then laughed, a sound layered with malice. "To play! You're just in time, Mommy!" A scream died unvoiced on her lips as realization struck her. They weren't here to help. They were here to trap her, to draw her deeper into the darkness. She started to back away, but the ground trembled beneath her feet. The flowers trembled, petals falling like confetti. "Mommy!" A desperate scream, her Emily's voice, echoed from the shadows behind the trees. It was an appeal laced with terror, but it came from somewhere deep in the darkness. "Let her go!" Sarah screamed, adrenaline igniting in her veins, driving her forward. But as she pushed through the chill, those eyes, cold, empty, watched her with a knowing malice. The shadows grew, stretching towards her. "Join us!" they chimed, their voices blending into something harmonious and terrifying. The word ooze hung in the air like a warning, slithering around her mind with a tantalizing promise of unification. Just as she lunged forward, desperate to find her daughter, the shadows surged, engulfing her. Sarah felt life slipping away, and a whisper caressed her ear. "You should have never followed." As the darkness closed around her, a cold grip tightened on her heart, suffocating, and the weight of 1,000 eyes bore down on her. Would fighting for her daughter also mean sacrificing herself? Sarah's vision blurred as the shadows wrapped themselves tightly around her. Cold, clammy fingers brushed her skin, chilling her to the bone. Panic surged through her, igniting a primal instinct to flee. She spun around, her heart racing, desperate for an escape. The laughter echoed in her ears, disembodied and taunting, bouncing off the trees like a sinister game. "Mommy, come play." The voices were everywhere, now merging into a chorus of taunts, twisting the very fabric of her sanity. She staggered backward, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet as the frozen flowers trembled and emitted an unsettling glow. "Emily!" Her voice was thin and strained, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Agonizing uncertainty bore down on her. Was Emily nearby? Or trapped somewhere far beyond her reach? Just then, a cold breeze ripped through the clearing, carrying the scent of pine and something rotten, putrid, not the soothing fragrance of nature, but the stench of decay. Sarah gasped, covering her mouth as bile rose in her throat. She turned, hoping that the way back would still be there, but the path had vanished, a cascade of shadows swallowing her escape. In her frantic state, she stumbled, falling to her knees. The cold ground bit into her flesh as she strained to look for some sign of her daughter. Suddenly, the earth beneath her shifted like a living entity, mud and snow rolling away from the grip of unseen forces. "Join us," the haunting whispers echoed, a mesh of childlike giggles intertwined with something far darker, a voice that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Let her go," Sarah screamed, now filled with unyielding courage as she clawed through the snow, her heart in turmoil. How could she have been so foolish? There was no game here, only deception layered with malice. The laughter morphed into voices that chanted incomprehensible words, filling her mind with dread. She felt it, a creeping knowledge that time was slipping away. "Mommy!" Emily's voice called again, a piercing cry that rang with sincerity buried in urgency. But it was drowned out by the laughter, the mocking chuckles that surrounded her like a miasma of despair. "Stay with us!" they chanted, the words reverberating in her skull, wrapping her thoughts in a vice of terror. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, focusing all her energy on Emily, clinging to that thread of hope. But as she desperately tried to reach for the light, shadows grew thicker, swirling around her like a storm. "Enough!" she shouted, pushing against the horror, the darkness, her mind racing. "I am coming for you, Emily!" Suddenly, the laughter erupted into a cacophony, a chorus of mocking jeers surrounding her. Sarah's breath quickened, the tendrils of the shadows tightening their grip. They were closing in, wrapping themselves around her limbs, trying to drag her deeper into the abyss. But then, through the chaos, she saw movement, a flicker at the edge of her vision. A figure in white emerged, luminous against the dark backdrop. It was small, just under the snow's surface. Was it a dream? A mirage? Her heart pounded. Could it be Emily? "Mommy! Help me!" The familiar voice, desperate yet hopeful, pulled at her. With fierce determination, Sarah fought against the shadows, feeling the icy clutches relinquish just a little. "Hold on, Emily, I'm coming," she yelled. But then, out of the shadows, another laugh rang out, giggles laced with venom, mocking her plea. "You can't save her. She's ours now." A chill gripped Sarah's heart, that last shred of hope flickering like a candle in a storm. Could she really save her daughter, or would she give in to the darkness instead? As the laughter lifted into an ominous chant, Sarah felt the ground tremble once again. Would she become another lost soul within the woods? She hesitated, awareness dawning with horrifying clarity. Every choice she made from this moment on would determine their fates. "Choose wisely, Mommy." With darkness closing in, Sarah steeled herself for the unknown. What lay ahead, she couldn't foresee. But a confrontation was imminent, and time was running out. The moment was approaching, the moment of truth. Would it be light or dark? Would she reclaim her daughter, or would she be lost forever? Sarah clawed her way through the swirling shadows, desperation fueling her every move. She felt as if the very air was thick with menace, wrapping around her throat like a vice. The laughter echoed louder, drowning out her thoughts, drowning out Emily's cries. "Stay with us." The chorus became a tangible entity, wrapping its tendrils around her mind, whispering sweet nothings that tasted of poison. Ignoring their calls, Sarah pushed further into the night. Each step felt heavier, like a lead weight pulling her deeper into the abyss. The temperature dropped, each breath becoming a chilling cloud that floated away with no hope of return. She had to reach Emily. She could hear that voice, so close yet so far. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, swathed in darkness, but with an unmistakable presence. It was a woman, her face obscured by a veil of night, but something about her seemed both haunting and familiar. "Help her," the woman urged, her voice low and smooth, but laced with an edge that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "Who are you?" Sarah breathed, panic gripping her chest. The shadows pulsed behind the woman, alive and writhing, as if seeking to escape into the world. "Your savior, or your doom," the woman whispered. With a swift motion she pointed deeper into the woods. "Follow that path, but beware the price." Ignoring the looming threat, Sarah bolted forward. The laughter drowned out her thoughts, growing frantic as if sensing her resolve. "You'll never see her again!" they taunted, each word slicing into her resolve. Emily's voice echoed like a symphony, reaching the height of crescendo. "Mummy, I'm here! Hold on!" Sarah called back, running faster, fueled by adrenaline. The darkness receded just a bit as she focused on that pinprick of hope, forcing herself to ignore the echoing treachery of the laughter, but every step felt like wading through molasses, fear gnawing at her heart. Without warning, Sarah tripped, falling into a pit of snow shallow enough to slow her down, but deep enough to feel void beneath her. She gasped, scrambling out, but not before the accusing voices latched onto her, drawing her back into their grasp. "Join us forever." The words wrapped around her, and for a moment she faltered. Visions of sweet moments shared with Emily, laughter in the playground, a voice too pure, played in her mind, battling with the shadows' insistent whispers. What was it worth to save her daughter? With renewed strength she broke free. "Get away from me!" Sarah cried, the shadows recoiling as if burned by her fierce will. The air crackled with tension as the laughter faltered, taken aback by her defiance. But it was at that moment she caught sight of something glistening in the snow ahead, a faint light shimmering amongst the darkness. Curiosity mixed with fear. Was it a chance to reclaim Emily, or a wicked trick of the woods? "Mommy! Please!" Emily's plea cut through the haze, tethering Sarah's heart to her frantic mission. She moved toward the glimmer, her instincts screaming a warning, a primal fear gripping her soul. As her fingers brushed the frozen surface, a jolt shot through her, blurring her thoughts. The shadows roared in fury, tightening their noose. "You've made your choice!" they screeched in unison, the air vibrating with their rage. Sarah looked into the shimmering light, feeling warmth like sunlight, yet the shadows around her twisted and churned, angry at her flickering hope. Was this her salvation or damnation? "Do it, Mommy!" rang Emily's voice, filled with urgency. In that split second, Sarah needed to decide, seize the shimmering light, risking everything, or retreat from the darkness that threatened to overwhelm her once more. A breath held too long, the weight of worlds compressed into a single heartbeat, and then the ground beneath her rumbled as another choice whispered through the chaos, sending her heart crashing back into despair. The price is coming. Is it possible to save Emily, or has it already become too late? The light crackled beneath Sarah's fingertips like fragile glass, pulsating with warmth that felt almost alive. She hesitated, torn between instinct and dread. The shadows snarled, a dizzying whirl of voices screaming promises and threats, but the promise of her daughter's pleas pulled her closer. "Mummy, you have to!" Emily's voice quavered, but beneath the urgency lay a tinge of fear. Sarah's heart raced, her pulse thrumming in her ears like a war drum. Sudden blaring laughter erupted, shrill and bone-chilling, echoing off the tree trunks and twisting around her like a cocoon. "You think you can save her? What price would you pay for a lost child?" They jeered, taunting her awareness, their words razor-sharp. With fiery determination, Sarah pressed her will against the glowing surface. It pulsed again, hotter this time as she braced herself against the surrounding gloom. Was she truly willing to pay whatever the price might be? "Mommy, please!" The plea tugged at her heartstrings, raw and urgent. The glimmering light beckoned, inviting her into its embrace as the laughing dulled for the briefest moment, an uneasy lull in the storm. Was she strong enough to choose? Inhaling sharply, she plunged her hand into the glow, feeling her entire being ignite with energy, each nerve ending alive and electric. A sudden blackness enveloped her, closing in with violence, sending spears of ice through her as though she'd broken through the surface of a frigid lake. Everything around her twisted. The warmth was gone. The shadows descended, shrieking, attempting to drag her back into their clutches. "Welcome to the reckoning!" The laughter morphed into a cacophony of wails and mocking whispers, blending together in a terrifying symphony, reminding her of the cost she had just deigned to embrace. But within the chaos, a flicker of light remained, a beacon in the storm. She followed it instinctively, desperate to reach her daughter, her breath coming in frantic bursts. "Mommy!" There it was again, that unmistakable sweet sound, fragile yet firm. Each note rang through her, elevating her courage amidst the mounting despair. The dark mass pulsed and roared, lashing towards her, angry at her defiance. "You cannot take her. She belongs to us now," they howled, the air thickening with malice. As she sped forward, the world erupted into silent shards. Time flowed differently. Seconds felt like hours. She saw flickers of images, Emily laughing, bright moments, the little girl twirling in her favorite dress, sunlight warming her smile. Each memory surged through Sarah like a lifeline, an anchor tethered to love and hope. Yet as she approached the spot where she last heard Emily's voice, the shadows surged, revealing twisted forms that appeared as if they were moments from her past, betrayed trust and laughter that soured into screams. They reached out, clawing at her flesh with cold, clammy fingers, sowing doubt within her. "Choose, Sarah!" a voice cried from somewhere deep within the looming shadows. The glimmering light flickered fiercely, almost beckoning her to strike a deal, like a lost child in a fog riddle of cold. The edges of her vision darkened as she gasped, a chilling realization dawning within her. What would she have to sacrifice? "Mummy!" Emily's voice cracked, trembling. An icy dagger of fear jabbed at Sarah's side. She couldn't lose her. Not now. Not ever. "No!" she shouted defiantly, pushing against the shadows, but the darkness spat back, clawing at the edges of her sanity. In that harrowing moment, the glimmer flickered one last time, as if sensing her resolve. Was it truly a way to reach Emily, or merely another trap? The shadows shrieked once again. "It's too late. You can't have her." Amidst the chaos, one piercing question echoed louder than the storm. What does the price of love truly cost? Dread settled in her belly. What more could she lose, and how far was she willing to go? The darkness pressed in like 1,000 hands, wanting to drag her down into the chasm. As the ground shook beneath her, Sarah felt the decision worm into her mind like a serpent. Time was slipping away. How long could she hold on to hope before everything was torn asunder? What now, she thought, the weight of her decision crashing down. But would it be enough? Would the price she had to pay be too much for the bond they shared? And then, from somewhere in the distance, she heard Emily's voice again, unbearably close but fading fast. "Mommy, please help!" Shrill laughter echoed behind her, and the chilling dread settled. In a moment of fate, Sarah realized the answer had to come fast. Before her lay the breaking point, the moment that would define her fate, and Emily's. What remained in the shadows? Would friendship with nightmares mean losing a piece of her soul forever? Sarah charged toward the flicker of light, the shadows clawing at her heels with ferocity. Each step sent electric shocks through her body, a painful reminder of the darkness fighting to keep her from Emily. The cacophony of laughter shifted, becoming a twisted symphony of torment. "You think yourself brave? You think love can conquer this?" they spat. "Let her go!" she screamed, her voice raw. Yearning fueled her desperation, her heart pounding against her ribs like a frantic drum, competing with the mocking echoes around her. But as she neared the light, the warmth she felt flickering against her fingers turned cold, pulling her in. Hands like smoke caught her wrists, squeezing tighter as she was pulled toward a disfigured shape looming just beyond the glow. "What is love, if not a chain?" It hissed, the voice slithering over her skin, icy and suffocating. Images flashed before her, Emily's first steps, her laughter, the warmth of their hugs. They were nothing but knives in her chest, each memory twisting the grip of despair tighter. "Mummy, please!" The faintest whisper stopped her cold, curling around the edges of her sanity. But this time, it felt different. It was softer, almost dreamlike. "No!" The shadows roared, the vibrations raw and violent. "You belong to us now!" The laughter erupted again, insatiable and frenzied. Sarah fought, battling against her own memories, colliding with the nightmarish reality. She pushed against the mass, trying to consume her. She bellowed, "I'll burn the world if I have to." "Then burn!" The shadows retaliated, surging forward, swirling around her, revealing the gluttonous faces that molded in and out of shapes like twisting smoke. They were once familiar, loved ones lost, friends turned to ash, memories trapped in the dust of a forgotten past. They clawed at her, faces melting into grotesque mockeries. With staggering resolve, Sarah tore away, wrenching herself free. She reached for the light that seemed to flicker like a heartbeat, feeling it pulse in response. Every ounce of hope surged through her, fueling a fire in her core. "Emily!" she cried, feeling the words bolt from her throat. "I'm coming!" She lunged forward, and the shadows recoiled, hissing and screeching, an orchestra of agony merging into an unsettling harmony. The light flared bright, blindingly so, and the cacophony dulled to whispers. But Sarah could hear Emily's voice cutting through the murk, crisp and clear. "Mummy, please don't let go." Clutching the warmth, Sarah felt the pull of her own love woven into the glow, binding her, granting strength. "I will never let you go," she yelled, propelling herself through the growing darkness until she was engulfed. Then chill seeped in like a suffocating fog. Fear warped into a tangible hand around her throat. The shadows tightened their grip, suffusing her heart with despair. "You think love can save you? This is where we feast." With frantic determination she turned, searching for the source of Emily's voice. The darkness pulled at her mind, fragments of doubt creeping in. What if it's too late? What if she's lost? But in the swirl of shadows, one bright spot remained like a star against a blackened sky. "You must decide. The cost is great," hissed the shadows, a chorus laced with palpable hunger. Just as she summoned the last remnants of her strength, something deep within that pulsing light resonated, a thrum that intertwined with her very spirit. What would emerge from the shadows? What treasure or terror awaited? As she reached for the light, a sinister whisper curled around her, leaving her breathless. "Remember, nothing comes without sacrifice." What would Sarah risk to reclaim her daughter? As she crossed the threshold, a shattering scream echoed in the abyss. The world began to crumble around her, uncertainties melding into chaos. Did she truly possess the strength to face the horrors that awaited? With the light's blinding pulse, everything changed. Shadows recoiled, swirling in a vortex of anguish, hesitating just long enough for Sarah to feel a flicker of hope. It ignited an urgency inside her, thrumming to the beat of her heart. "Emily!" she screamed again, her voice a weapon as she fought against the suffocating darkness, threatening to snuff out her will. Time warped, elongating each dreadful moment. The shadows began to whisper fervently, words coiling around her mind, planting seeds of doubt. "You're too late. You should have stayed," they hissed, voices echoing like a tightening noose, squeezing out her resolve. Panic surged through her, a frantic energy propelling her forward toward that pulsating light. The visions of Emily twisted and fell, each one more distorted than the last. She saw her daughter, but not as she should be. Her face warped and eyes wide with terror, trapped in some eternal nightmare. "Mummy, help me!" the voice echoed, but it morphed into a dissonant chorus that sent tremors through Sarah's heart. The shadows grew bolder, bearing their grotesque forms, a mass of despair shaping itself around her, lost souls clamoring for attention, their features alarmingly familiar. Friends she buried, her parents' haunting smiles contorted into expressions of primal rage. They reached out, begging for release, their outstretched hands weaving through darkness like twisted branches in a storm. "Let her go!" she bellowed, now the warrior she never thought she could be. The glow around her flickered, staving off the encroaching despair and strengthening her heart. She gritted her teeth against the building dread. "You will not take me or my child!" The shadows surged, howling with laughter, a cacophony that quivered in her bones. "Love is a weakness," they mocked, snatching at her ankles as she faltered, her resolve teetering. "Do you think your love can breach the abyss? It has always devoured the weak." With a sudden surge of defiance, Sarah pulled forth thoughts of Emily's laughter, pure and vibrant, the very soul of her being. "You don't understand," she cried. "Love is the fire that burns away the dark." A flash of white erupted from the depths of the glow, illuminating the grotesque shadows. She squeezed her eyes shut against the brilliance, feeling warmth replace the cold terror grasping at her. Then silence. Sarah opened her eyes. The swirling dark faded, leaving behind the flicker of light that now stood before her as solid as stone. Her breaths came heavy and uneven. The stillness felt wrong, alien. Where was the laughter? In the quiet air, a faint sound drew her attention. A child's soft whimper, panic twisted in her gut as she turned, her heart leaping into her throat. "Emily!" The whisper hung like a promise in the air, fragile and desperate. The shadows whispered again, but this time they sounded almost maternal, silky smooth. "She is close, but is she truly yours?" Clutching the light, Sarah strained her ears. The child's whimper from deep within the darkness, the sound gnawed at her resolve. She could feel the coldness creeping from behind her, the shadows eager to reclaim what they had lost. "You don't belong here," she muttered, stepping deeper into the glow. "Face your choice, Sarah," the shadows sang, their voices dripping with malice. "What will you sacrifice for your child? A soul for a soul." Each word coiled around her heart, squeezing tightly, forcing the air from her lungs. What did they mean? Would she have to make an unspeakable choice? The deeper she stepped into the light, the more she felt herself unraveling, as though the very essence of who she was being tested. How far would she go to save Emily? The silence was deceitful, shrouded in an unsettling calm, a storm preparing to surge. Just as she was about to scream her answer, the shadow surged forward once more, hungry, relentless. Choose or lose her forever. As the last echoes of their words faded, the bright light began to flicker violently, threatening to extinguish. What was she willing to sacrifice? In this moment, Sarah understood terror in its purest form. The question lingered like a fog, choking her resolve, and she had to decide before it was too late. Would she embrace the darkness to save her daughter? A bead of sweat trickled down her brow as the choice loomed ever nearer. What awaited her in the shadows? Would it hold the answers, or a fate worse than they imagined? Sarah's heart raced, each thump pounding in time with the urgency that echoed in her mind. The shadows danced around her, flickering like candles fighting against a suffocating wind. The question hung heavy in the air, threatening to shatter her resolve. What would she give up for Emily? She could feel the oppressive darkness swirling, the very fabric of the night writhing with hungry whispers. The voices twisted around her, mocking and taunting, pulling at the edges of her sanity. They'd already taken so much. How could she let them claim her daughter too? "Emily!" she cried again, desperation spilling from her lips like blood from a wound. "I'll find you, I promise." The mocking laughter intensified, swirling through the shadows like a tempest. "You can't save her," they taunted. "You don't even know the price." The echo of her daughter's voice was a fragile thread that tethered her will. With renewed determination, Sarah pushed against the tide of darkness. The flickering light between her fingers pulsed with fierce intensity, a heartbeat in the chaos. "Love is a fire," she shouted, summoning the memory of Emily's laughter, the warmth of her little body against Sarah's side, the way her eyes sparkled with innocent wonder. "You can't take that from me." In that moment everything stopped. The swirling shadows hesitated, their gnarled faces wavering as if caught off guard by her conviction. The light responded, flaring brilliantly and sending warm waves of energy through Sarah. She lunged into the luminous radiance, feeling the shadows recoil as if burned by the brightness. "Emily!" The shout tore from her throat, fierce and unyielding. Then she caught sight of her, a small silhouette trapped between trees, the warmth of the world flickering behind her beloved daughter's cold face. "Mommy, help!" With each step deeper into the brightness, Sarah fought through the encroaching dark, formless shadows, reaching toward her like the sins of her past, threatening to drag her back into despair. "Stop! You won't take her!" Sarah yelled, her voice roaring like a gale. And then she was there, right beside Emily, pulling her close in a protective embrace. The little girl trembled, her eyes wide with fear, but shimmering with hope behind the veil of shadows. "Mommy, I thought I lost you," Emily sobbed, the sound shattering the fragile calm that lingered in the air. No, I'm here." Sarah held her daughter tightly, guiding them both toward the encroaching light, each heartbeat a reminder of the love that illuminated their path. "We can get out. Just hold on to me." Together, they bolted forward, the shadows shrieking in outrage, desperate hands grasping for what they were losing. "You'll lose her forever," they howled, the cacophony growing into deafening echoes that rattled Sarah's resolve. But love coursed through her veins, igniting a fire in her heart that nothing could extinguish. With each step she took, the darkness behind them began to unraveling like a worn blanket losing its threads. As they broke through into the light, a pulse rippled around them, cascading warmth like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Sarah felt the shadows receding, their voices fading into a distant whisper, anguish mingling with loneliness. In that blinding moment, something shifted within her. She realized that the choice she had faced was not just a transaction, it was a matter of heart, and she had chosen love over fear, light over darkness. The world fell silent. Mother and daughter stood together, breathless and bewildered, hearts racing. Where they once feared the winter's chill, warmth enveloped them now, a protective cocoon. "Mommy, what just happened?" Emily looked up at her, eyes filled with confusion and hope. Just a bad dream." Sarah brushed away a stray snowflake, her trembling hand still warm against her child's cheek. Ahead of them, a clearing shimmered, untouched by shadows, the moon casting soft light over a fresh layer of snow. No horror lingered here, only peace and the promise of a new day. As they walked, step by step, leaving the darkness behind, Sarah pulled Emily closer. "We'll always fight together, you hear me? No matter what." Emily nodded, the warmth of her mother's love wrapping around her like a blanket, sheltering her from the fears that had once threatened to consume them. And with the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, illuminating their path, Sarah realized that darkness may always exist, but love would forever shine brighter. They stepped forward into the unknown, hand in hand, united, as two souls carved their story into the winter landscape. Their story of courage, hope, and an unbreakable bond that even darkness could not extinguish. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Be part of our journey. Smash that like button now. To feed the algorithm and keep us thriving, flood the comment section with your thoughts and theories about this chilling ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's keep the conversations going. Your support matters.